counties cannot do their own rent control stuff.
Is my phone?
Specifically for single-family homes, homes that are first occupied after February 1995, and condos. And yeah, it does say February 1995, but as time goes on, this will cover more and more units. So essentially, as time goes on, local rent control is more and more applicable to most units in cities. Rent control works by limiting the amount of rent that your landlord can increase your rent every year. However, it doesn't apply if you're a brand new tenant moving into a new unit. Okay. So also there is statewide rent control, which is 5% plus inflation, and it's capped at 10%. This is thanks to David Chu, who's actually our current city attorney.
Whoa.
Back when he's at the state level. Okay. So this is, rent control's been on the ballot for a long time, right? So it failed in 2018 and 2020, and now it's back. It's still a relevant question. Fiscal notes on this from the analysts say that there's going to be a reduction in local property tax because it will reduce the value of these commercial properties. Because you can't, if you can't increase rent however much you want, then your profits are going to be capped. It can only grow very slowly. So that's why the general market is going to take a hit. It makes the market more regulated, less sexy to investors, less sexy to developers. And again, this is only about local rent control. Whether to keep it as it is, which local governments cannot enact local rent control, but if it passes, then they can. And then each little city, each county can have its own policies about rent control. So in one city, you might be able to raise rents however much you want between each year. But in the next city over, you might only be able to raise it 10%, 20%, what have you. Okay. So this is unfortunately another economic question about the effects of rent control on the housing market, whether you think it'll be a good thing or a bad thing. It's a direct tool to keep tenants in their buildings because then the people can't raise their rents by however much they want. So it prevents displacement and it keeps people in their units. However, on the other side, economists say that it messes up the market, right? Because if you're in a rent control unit, you're not inclined to move across town or whatever, because if you move, your new landlord can charge you whatever they want. If you stay, your landlord can only increase it by a certain amount. So you're inclined to stay. And why is it bad for the market? It's bad for the market because the prices, because that unit that you're in is not going to be, it's just gone from the market, right? So the market is smaller, it's shrunk, right? So the market for apartments are smaller, and that makes it more susceptible to supply and demand, okay? Also, if you're a student just graduated, if you're trying to move out of your house, you're trying to move to a new city to start a career, that smaller market means there's probably higher rents for you, so it's tougher for you, okay? Also, if there's some really strict rent control policies in this city, and I'm a developer, I want to build housing, I probably don't want to go to that city where I won't make as much money. So I'll probably go to the next city over. So therefore, there's going to be less development going on in your town. Maybe you like that, maybe you don't, but that's going to be an effect of having rent control. Okay, any clarifying questions on this policy? Yes?
Does Costa-Hawkins also prevent rent control on apartments, or apartments are exempt from Costa-Hawkins?
It applies to apartments first occupied after 1995.
Oh, okay, so just all units
Built
after 95?
Yes.
Okay.
It might be very more specific things in the code, but as far as I know right now, that's what we're going to go off of.
Cool.
And then there's also statewide rent control, 10%. So, just yeah. All right. Yes.
Oh no.
All right.
I was just cheering
cheering to the song ending. And I'm like, oh.
Alright, let's go.
So
4.
it might just be
We got Carmen.
Why am I talking?
These units have like good pictures and like they're legit.
4.
They're like legitimate.
Take it
places.
away.
But like
We also have
you know,
a crazy.
a lot of
view,
people
like,
rent
there's
here,
trade-offs.
and a lot
Yeah.
of those people are teachers.
Oh
So
yeah,
why would you not make sure rent is cheap enough for our teachers to afford to live in the city so they don't have to commute? So you have more teachers, and not just teachers, all like civil servant kind of people who work minimum wage, because those are city jobs and whatever in other local. So why would you want to cap or not cap, make it so rental laws are more feasible for these people who are can't afford to purchase homes in those areas, right? So I would say,
What am I
We're just
saying?
talking about.
Help the teachers.
yeah, and not just teachers, it's all these people who can only afford to rent, right? And in the long run, to say like you're trying to increase minimum wage. I'm trying to bring this all around. This is hard. Right? So like, yeah, words. I hate talking.
No,
Words.
where's the team at? Where's the team at?
Help me!
You did it.
And y'all didn't help me on the last one.
Yeah.
Anything else from the force side?
Mhm.
Force side?
Yeah, I think we're just like trying to like the point that we're trying to touch on is like we don't want people who are already spending like a large portion of their paycheck towards rent. We don't want them to like go through even more. Like we don't have to make it any harder for them, right? We have to like have some empathy for like you know our community and you know yeah have empathy. Help the teachers.
For the people!
Boo empathy.
The people who can't afford to live in rich areas.
Boo.
Okay, let's go to against. Why is rent control bad?
Oh my god.
Strong at the gate.
Yeah.
You want to take it over?
I'm so sorry for your loss.
Rent control is the devil. No, so it undermines statewide rent control laws, like we already have those in the books, reduces home values, there's no protections for seniors, veterans, or the disabled, reduces landlord profits, and many of those are tied to pensions, you know, blah, blah, blah. Local governments, they just can't be trusted to manage rent control properly. I mean, like, what if a local government is like, oh, you need to have, like, negative increases? Well, you're gonna, like, artificially decrease rents? That doesn't make any sense. It decreases housing supply in the short term by people who are in rent-controlled units already are disincentivized to move out of them. So, you know, you don't get as much churn, and then people get, like, sort of live their entire lives in a single apartment complex, and it's just kind of gross. It reduces the incentives to build more housing. The Yes in My Backyard people, you know, they're opposed to this because, you know, this is not the real way to go. This is kind of a Band-Aid measure that sort of like makes it harder to build more, right? And really building out and growing the housing stock is really, you know, that's the name of the game. You know, not futzing with the current housing stock. That's not the name of the game. The name of the game is making the housing stock better. And also this proposition has failed twice before, so, you know, what can I say? I feel like California doesn't want it, so why even try it?
True.
Anything else to add? Against team, anything else to add?
Rent control sucks.
Alright,
Yay.
sorry for your loss.
Kill his family, so I can't tell what to say.
Alright. Discussion. So, I mean, how are people feeling on this? Like, it's a lot of, what does your decision hinge on, right? Who's on the fence? Like, who has questions?
Well, when Henry was saying like, oh, this is gonna benefit, and then in my mind I'm like, are we sure it's gonna benefit? Are we sure that local rent control is better than state rent control? And is rent control even like beneficial overall
In general.
in general? That's my questions.
Well, yes, if you ask the folks who are in a unit and they don't have a lot of income, it's helped them a lot. So, for those folks, yeah, it helps them a lot.
I also think that if we think about housing as like a for-profit thing, right? Like we like give these landlords just control to like raise the rent however they want, then they're more incentivized to like take that money and like buy another house and do the same thing, and that in turn like lowers the amount of houses that are accessible, especially to like the lower class or middle class and stuff like that. right? Like they're just gonna like buy more houses and they're gonna be landlords for business, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying we want to discourage rentals as a business?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about like we're talking about like housing for people, right? Like how accessible it is for people, right? And so, yeah, I guess I am talking about like discouraging it as a like for profit business.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a fair point. Yeah. Well, let's say the landlord, if they raise it 10%, that's a big cut, right? No one's salary is increasing 10% every year,
Nope.
but they're still allowed to increase your rent 10% a year. So
It's gonna
maybe-
happen either way.
yeah, maybe you do need stricter rent control.
And you would think your local government, the people you vote for, would think of, the people that live in the local area, right? If they make certain laws, whatever the rental law would be in the area would match what everyone would vote it for, like the policies and like the political side of whatever the local government person they voted for, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. I just think that like landlords and like developers and real estate investors, they have a lot of money to throw around, right? And they're probably like in our offices like lobbying for their cause,
Yeah.
right? So it's not, I guess it's not like the people that we elect into office aren't necessarily always looking out for us, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I would hope so.
In San Francisco, I mean, probably like to Will's point, they could probably pass something that says there's negative rent control,
And that's absurd.
yeah.
Just kidding. I don't, honestly, like, I don't know.
There
I
were a
lived
lot
my
of
entire
lawsuits,
life.
but
I lived my entire life in a rent controlled unit. Like my family, like we've been in a rent controlled apartment. Yeah, like my entire life. And so
Was that a benefit or a negative?
maybe it's a negative. I don't know.
So it sounds like it's not. a
It kept me
negative.
around here. Is that a negative?
Exactly. So it kept you in
that
a
is a
nice
negative.
neighborhood and let you.
Right, I know. Well,
Be
that's
in
what
a
I'm saying.
good
Like,
education.
I'm not on like the
Yeah.
anti-side anymore. This is the real me.
So in
Hey,
a
that
real
His family has
case.
not been murdered.
Yeah.
So in a real
Neighbors.
case, you lived in a rent control apartment,
Yes.
was able to stay in a nice neighborhood, had
Yes.
a nice education,
Yes.
went to a nice college.
Oh, nice
That's
education.
nice.
Not a nice college. I don't
you
know.
went to laws.
Yeah. And now you're in a nice
I know how to
job,
watch cars.
right? But now, are you able to afford to live in that same neighborhood? Because you're out of that rent controlled place now.
Oh, on my own? Kinda, not really. I'm on a bubble. I don't know.
No, that's true. But yeah, that's such a bubble. It's so hard to live.
Well, I mean, like, so for you who grew up in a rent controlled area,
Mm-hmm.
your family was able to pay for other areas of life without having to worry about rent as much, right?
Exactly.
And so that is like a positive for
Yeah.
people who would be living in
I hear a lot of
It's
arguments
stability.
for rent control.
Uh-huh.
I'm personally against it.
Really?
Yeah.
How come?
But you have to think of, you just think
Because-
about statewide. What do you think about that?
Think about
The
this.
bigger picture.
I
Think about the
What is
bigger
your
picture.
argument? Just
Yes.
Yeah. What do you think? Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
We're curious.
Because of most,
What are the people? The people need to know.
You're a spokesperson for the government, right?
Good in leader.
What do you have to say?
Dude,
the
what do you do
most
with my tax
efficient way to get housing built right now is to have the market do its thing. And
Development.
make it easy for developers to build.
To come
And
in.
let the market do its thing. That's
Yeah.
that's that argument for its
It's kind of like,
um,
this is a weird side thing, but like, it's kind of like Elon Musk, right? He left California,
okay.
not developing here anymore, and
Uh-huh.
moved to a place that is developing, has less strict restrictions.
Yeah.
So if we had more restrictions here, people would think not to develop here and leave, and then housing crisis would be just as worse.
Yeah.
So you're saying the market will take care of itself?
That's the most effective mechanism we have right now.
You're saying that
Unless
people like Will's family should take the hit?
You think should have been on the street?
if you go for that, I mean nothing will
I should have
like,
been in like fucking Daly
that
City.
apartment will
That's
still
you
be
kicking me out
rent
of Daly
Uh-huh.
City.
that apartment will still be rent controlled.
Yeah.
This doesn't if you vote yes for this doesn't remove any rent
Right.
control that existing.
So you're
It just
saying
doesn't change it.
buildings after 95, you're saying
Yeah.
those are the ones that can be rent controlled, or the ones that
Can
the other
be,
way around.
Can be locally controlled.
yeah,
Yeah.
the other way around.
So
Hello.
yeah, I mean
Well,
So?
there's still, we're not discussing whether or not rent control is good or not, cause this bill is just, do we want state or local government to?
If you vote yes for this, it
Okay.
will allow local governments to enact their own rent control policies.
And there are some places who are very
Like very
conservative, very conservative about like who can be in the area, right? You can
Yeah,
see
but that doesn't really play here because all they would do is, the only thing this
Wait.
lets them do is enact stricter or less strict rent control policies.
They can't use those policies to like target different groups.
But they
they-
can word it in a way that
It would get challenged by the ACLU. It would get struck down. There's like civil rights legislation that would prevent that
what's
target
wrong with
discrimination.
having-
Like I'm just saying, like
It's,
it's all or nothing. Is what I'm saying.
It talks about what this will do is probably allow more local governments to enact stricter rent control policies.
What would those be?
Those would be like you can't raise rent more than 2% every year.
But that's at the discretion of the local government.
Of
The
the
local
local-
government decides that like we don't want anything to do with rent control. Like it's fine the way it is. They could do that as well. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
But what is likely to happen,
Mm-hmm.
probably in the liberal big cities, are going to be stricter rent control policies.
Can't increase.
Can't increase.
So
maybe even
essentially,
0%.
why would I rent out my place? I'll just turn it into an Airbnb.
Yeah. Well, they have
Yeah.
rules about that. Too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Airbnb gets more regulated.
But
than this.
that's to Henry's point at first, where it's like, oh well, okay, the market's gonna be worse for landlords. Maybe that's a good thing, right? Maybe we don't want landlords to go crazy and do whatever they want.
Or do we think that's a contributing factor to the housing crisis? Right. Landlords buying up land and
Turning them into rentals.
Yeah, absolutely. But so what other things can we do about this housing crisis that may be related to rent control, right?
Public housing.
Public housing, sure. So
It's
that's
got,
the
it's
other
got
thing,
such
right?
a bad rap in this
Now, are
country.
people down to pay a lot more taxes to set out a public housing agency to start building
Or-
huge apartments? I'm down for that.
Who would tax the shit out of these landlords, man? Like,
Yeah.
How dare you?
But, yeah, but
I don't know. Like,
can the government do that right now?
oh, I don't know if I can. I
That-
don't know
yeah.
how they can. I don't know.
Are
That's-
you guys
that's
gonna
a political
organize
warfare.
and get everyone on board to get these policies passed, get these politicians in office that will let that happen?
No.
What is the most feasible and efficient way that we have to make a dent in the problem? That's kind of where we're at right now.
Well, I do feel like kind of adjacent to your point is like the idea that if you build something new in this city, there have to be a certain amount of affordable units, BMR, below market
Sure.
rate.
Yeah.
Is that not kind of, if you squint, is that not kind of like a form of rent control in and of itself? But it's not called rent control, so therefore, it doesn't apply to Costa Hawkins. But it's still like below market rate, and it's like, what's going on there? Like, it feels like a loophole, but if you look at it objectively, it's the same damn thing, and we're okay with it. And in fact, it's required and is an impediment, kind of, to certain projects going forward.
Well,
Right?
who's owning, those buildings that they're putting the affordable housing?
The same people that would be affected by these rent control policies. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, like, I feel like
Aren't-
BMR units and rent control, are they not two sides of the same coin? And they're kind of like doing the same thing effectively at the end of the day?
Like on a different level.
Like, I don't know how BMR is like done, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I
You know what I
wouldn't
mean?
say so.
It's
I wouldn't
like
say so.
below.
If I build a new tower right now,
Yeah.
maybe like 20% of it has to be affordable. Okay, that's the 20% I'm not too worried about.
Those
So
have,
my
another way
money's
of saying
made-
that is those 20% are rent controlled.
In a sense, yeah.
In a sense, yes.
Sure.
So we kind of allow it already. So like,
Yeah, I guess.
you know what I mean?
It's a different mechanism.
Yeah.
That's a different.
I just feel like it's like
What?
this whole thing of like no rent control, yes rent. We're already kind of doing it, like regardless.
No, but we're not. For
Uh.
for the other 80% of units.
Yeah. Oh, I guess okay.
Yeah, those I can charge 5,000 a month, and when they move out, or no, it's not. Yeah, I can charge up to 10%, according to the state.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Wait, I
So-
still don't. Oh, there you go.
uh,
And that's just on residential rental properties, not a retail or commercial rental properties, or not
residential units, yeah.
only. Okay.
So, but the salient point is, as a developer,
Mhm.
rent control that messes with 100% of my units.
Yeah.
That's a huge no. I'm gonna go across the border, South City, and build over there instead of going to San Francisco, which has like 5% only. That's horrible. I would take rather than 20 units, whatever affordable, whatever. I don't care about those. I get my money from the 80%,
Right.
and therefore I will develop in San
Yeah.
Francisco. So.
Either way, San Francisco still has to develop like what we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
where they have to develop a certain amount of housing either way to match
Yes.
up to needs.
Yes, but the city can only do so much. Like, it can't build units itself. It has to like ask people to come, please build in San Francisco, please. And that's
Yeah, I don't
that's all
know.
they can do.
Then they
Now
would
we're-
make rental those laws less strict then, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, but would you support a politician that is like, oh, letting
Would-
developers do whatever they want, right?
this,
So then,
yeah.
So what would the people allow? I don't know.
I just don't know why, like, well, I know why, but I don't know why we can't, like, build our own, like, public housing or whatever.
We can't be very
A
expensive.
commune?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Like, who's gonna pay the taxes? You know,
It'll be
I
very
guess so.
the
expensive.
rich people, right?
If our bathroom costs whatever, like a toilet costs whatever, $700,000.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm sorry, like a house.
That's true.
It's gonna
Yeah.
be so expensive.
Yeah.
So we're against this.
Well, it's.
But
I don't know.
still-
I'm on the
Question.
I
line.
still don't get like, okay, so
Mm.
you said
Yeah.
we are debating rent control or not rent control, but I'm like,
Absolutely.
in my mind, I'm like, this is state rent control or city rent control. It's still rent control.
There is rent control in the state.
Yeah.
So what are you doing with it?
Right now,
This is
right now the state says. Right now the state sets the rules on rent control.
Okay.
Should we allow the cities to do that,
Yeah.
or just keep it at state level?
I
I
trust.
think we should allow
Do we trust our city more or the
the
state
local
more?
government.
So what will probably happen is local governments will enact stricter rent control.
in the places that need it.
Right.
Or is it a
We don't know. We don't
is it a
know.
blanket thing? The legislation would be for the whole city of San Francisco, or
Yeah, it'll be by city.
Was this proposition made before? When was this only put up twice only so far?
It might have been more. It might have been more.
It has happened before.
Yeah, and I think it's failed every time.
Every time.
So if you're against rent control, would you say yes to this? Because
No, if you're against rent control, you would vote no on this.
and
Yeah.
let the state
Continue to say
continue
what.
to do rent
Yeah.
control.
Because it sounds like there's not a scenario where the local government would like be done with rent control. Like it's only gonna be more intense. Is that like the assumption?
Well,
Not
I'm
intense,
thinking
that's what it
about
sounds
like
like.
Strict,
Napa,
yeah, it's
like Napa or like somewhere like Northern California, they're probably gonna be less strict because.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't really need it.
That's
as much,
fair.
Like you know what I mean? Like local governments.
So wouldn't you be like if you're against rent control? Wouldn't you want local?
Because the status quo is against.
It's generally
Yeah.
it's
But
the
what
risk
if
you
there are
take.
cities that
Ah,
are
you don't
happy with
know
their
what's
housing
gonna
market,
happen.
You know what I mean?
So those would be. I'm imagining that situation is like rich suburbs. They're happy with
Right.
They're not allowed to be happy because
Oh,
no, the federal, the state government.
There's a happiness control.
Because like I told you, they have to build a certain number of units, even if they don't want to, they have to.
Say it louder.
So
Well, I mean, they
What
still
would you
have
say?
to build a certain number of units, but in terms of like rent control,
yeah.
if they're happy with, if the renters there are happy, you know what I mean? Then the local government is not inclined to do anything about it. You know what I
Correct.
mean?
Yeah.
And so there's still the real possibility of like, although this is passing, right? Local governments can say,
we don't want to touch
hands
it.
off,
Yeah.
everything's okay, hands off.
Yes. Yeah. And that'll be fine for.
So why don't we just pass it then?
Because what will likely happen in the liberal cities is that there will be stricter rent control policies. So we don't want the against side
It's a
doesn't want
risk,
to let
yeah.
that happen at all. So they're against it.
Yes. This proves a lot of us are centrists. 'Cause
I
it's
mean,
not-
most people are. Most people are centrists.
No, I just feel like this is a weird sort of instrument that affects the housing stock and rent prices in weird ways that are contradictory, and we just don't know how it would all shake out. Because I do know, like, yeah, people who are in these units, these rent-controlled units, like, they tend to stay in the same unit,
Mhm.
and it gets all crummy. And the landlord themselves are like, they're not incentivized to do the maintenance on that,
Exactly,
on
yeah,
that
yeah.
apartment or whatever. You know? And it just sort of, like, falls apart. And it's, like, full of mold.
What other state has local rent control?
Great question. In your own time.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Probably like Washington, probably New York for sure. I think in New York, the whole state might be also under rent control.
With like local though?
Oh, like different little
If they
cities.
like if it
Yeah.
yeah, like this.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. We don't have time for that now. Yeah. So. All right. Final thoughts.
Hard-hitting question.
Final thoughts. All right. Let's move on.